Take your pick. Persona is filled with characters that we can all come to love and appreciate, if not for their depiction of niche traits, then for the personalities and characteristics they exhibit. Persona itself is no stranger to throwing people under the bus. Many of its stories are about philosophical battles and existential crises pitted against the most hyper-emotionally charged human beings to ever exist: teenagers.
Doesn't sound so different to real life, to be honest.
But all these groups of charismatic and eccentric young adults share similar themes and traits. Persona is about discovering who you are, and how the knowledge of that discovery can give you the power to overcome all the obstacles that life might throw at you. So, in between powerful personalities and unique quirks that set these characters apart from one another, what does that say about Yosuke Hanamura? Yosuke is best remembered as the partner for Yu Narukami, the protagonist for Persona 4. But who exactly is this particular character? Let's get real for a second. A person has probably paused and reflected on where their life was going. And this doesn't even have to be about mental illnesses like stress, anxiety, or depression, though these, along with self-worth and self-esteem, can certainly prove to have profound effects on the human psyche. It can affect how one sees themselves and why that is. But this prelude to an existential crisis leads to another thought. What could I be doing more? Followed by thoughts of what exactly a person might think they are lacking. Well, that's Yosuke in a nutshell. In Persona 4 and its Golden expansion, Yosuke is one of your first friends. He helps you get familiar with the setting of rural Inaba. He's introduced very early, and together both of you come into contact with the overall story that unfolds, with or without the presence of certain characters. The fundamental bonds that you develop with Yosuke start with his role as a teammate. But in developing your social link further, you truly see the sides of him that mold him into the person that he is. To be quite frank, Yosuke is probably one of the most normal, almost realistic depictions of a character of ordinary means brought into a world of extraordinary circumstances. He's a dork, has a bike and a retail job. He helps his father manage the Junes department store. He goes to school, but he's no one above average or particular enough for the people around him. Had he not shown up to talk to you, he could have just been a bystander. Yosuke also likes a girl, Saki. She doesn't reciprocate, actually just the opposite. She hates him. And this is due to socioeconomic expectations and desires that stem from the Junes department store. She works there and Yosuke likes having her there because he's crushing. But this creates intrigue amongst fellow employees who also don't like him. On top of that, people already don't like him because Junes is seen as a threat by some to the local economy of Inaba. Besides that, not much really happens for Yosuke. Even he sees his employment to Junes as boring and menial, both during and after the events of Persona 4 and Golden. Still, Yosuke retains a good-hearted curiosity. When the Midnight Channel starts portraying actual murders happening around town, he, Yu, and Chie, another teammate, poke into the mysteries of the Midnight Channel, discovering a bizarre TV world that manifests shadows, the inner demons of one's ego. And it's here that we see Yosuke about as plainly as possible.
It's so sad. I feel so sorry for myself. Boo-hoo! Actually, I'm the one who thinks everything's a pain in the ass.
Huh? Two Yosuke's?
Who are you? I wouldn't think that. Yeah, right. How long are you going to keep deluding yourself? Screw the shopping district and Junes too. You're sick of everything, especially living out in the sticks. What are you saying? That's not true. You put on a good show of being carefree and happy-go-lucky because you're so terrified of being alone. The more the merrier, right? You've got to be surrounded by people to block out the pain of isolation. And what's this about checking out this world for Saki-senpai's sake? Ha! I know the real reason you came snooping. Stop it! Why so panicked? I thought I was just spouting bullshit. Or maybe I do know everything you're thinking. Why's that? Because I am you. You just came because you thought it sounded like a good time. What else is there to do out in this shithole? A world inside the TV. Now that's exciting. You didn't have a single other reason for coming here, did you?
It's not true. Stop! Stop it!
You're just trying to act like a big shot. If all went well, hey, maybe you could even be a hero! And that senpai you were so sweet on, her death was the perfect excuse.
That's not true! What are you? Who are you?
I already told you. I'm you. Your shadow. There's nothing I don't know about you.
Screw that! I don't know you! You can't be me, you son of a... Yosuke feels robbed. Deep down, he doesn't feel he belongs or should be in Inaba to begin with. He feels he is lacking the excitement and purpose that he could be fulfilling elsewhere, a trait that can be found in many young adults of his age. And it is because of this that he feels alone to himself. The prospect of the TV world provides that excitement and purpose, and perhaps a way to unlock the secret to the meaning of his own apparently pathetic life. In other words, Yosuke wants to be something more than just a detriment to others or even to himself. That's particularly important. No one else will think as lowly of himself as Yosuke would. Even as you advance his social links, you see just how prone he is to demeaning himself, even after he has to stand up for himself. The average Joe that hates themselves, despite their ongoing search for purpose and fulfillment. I'm certain that you can think of a few personal examples right off the bat. Everything the TV world does is to bring into focus one's personal perception of their lives and other elements that are closely related. Yosuke's area of interest is a dark, scratched, and messy version of the liquor store that Saki's parents own. It's taken a financial beating since Junes arrived in town. For Saki, this is likely how she perceived and felt about a location that she frequents in. Simply put, she harbors a profound and spiteful distaste for Junes, which we know is what ties her to Yosuke. As for Yosuke, it is basically what reality is for the people because of the department store. It's not his fault, but Saki and other people wouldn't believe that. It even taunts him with the voice of Saki. This even includes cut-up pictures of him and her. Eventually, he does accept his shadow and obtain a persona, joining the ranks of the team. And for the sake of character narrative, it is also the maturity needed to embrace and accept one's deepest personal faults and begin the steps towards becoming something beyond them. Saki and the need to do something meaningful may have been his initial reason to investigate the TV world, but since confronting his shadow, and with knowledge of the danger that the TV world possesses, Yosuke becomes determined to help his friends and defeat the shadows. The further the plot advances, more people join the team. And here, we do see some of Yosuke's niches in personality. He often defers to you, the leader, as well as other characters like Naoto when it comes to figuring out the smallest details of the TV world's supernatural mysteries. He's a romantic, but more in the sort of love-curious teenager type, not the womanizer or suave gentleman kind, unlike specific Narukamis. And generally speaking, he adds a light-hearted vibe to the group, sharing food, making Junes a regular meetup spot, and kidding about to raise the mood. However, he does occasionally butt heads with others in the group, as you can expect from teenagers who don't realize that they don't know better. The team is filled with strong personalities and special backgrounds. It's not hard to see why Yosuke would not fit in, and how his particular personality and personal assumptions can clash with the others, even if only when interacting with one another for matters not related to the Midnight Channel. Even if he acted in genuine curiosity, anxiety, or in a humorous spirit regarding his fellow investigators, Yosuke's eccentricity is quickly overlapped by the sharp and specific traits expressed by all the fellows and females that join the team. They all have their own shadows and related dungeons, and they all have their own opinions and interests that are so unique and detailed that it's easy to see why Yosuke can be labeled as the comic relief, alongside Narukami and Teddy. Heck, it's easy to understand why Yosuke's own interactions have an off feeling about them. But I think that's kind of related to the main point of his character. He's also not the only one to exhibit traits of misunderstanding people. We have to remember that much of Persona is about normal people being faced with explicitly personal issues without a proper understanding of them initially. And we do see that Yosuke and the others grow from these kinds of experiences to the point that they can interact with each other without provoking hostility. As I said, Yosuke is probably one of the most normal, almost realistic depictions of a character of ordinary means brought into a world of extraordinary circumstances. And this doesn't have to apply to just the strange nature of the TV world. But if there is one thing that makes Yosuke special, it is a certain dynamic in which Yosuke's individual story contains all the proper subtext and what makes him so special to an entire cast filled with special people. Power. This word in itself presents numerous paradoxes. It is the capacity to do more, or the capability to do something we could have only dreamed of. It is the ability to become, or the ability to be more. It is overcoming obstacles or crushing them entirely. It is the opportunity for more, or the opportunity for more. Put simply, it is more. More life, more opportunities, more power. Now, why would I talk about power? Well, it's Persona, a series that blends epic JRPGs and mystery thrillers and is all about overcoming the darkest fears and desires brought about by the psyche of the human being. But power in Persona is more than just overcoming obstacles. It is also about being and becoming someone. To find the truths hidden within yourself to unlock a special reserve of power that only you could bring forth. And for an absolute nobody like Yosuke, it's having a purpose. I've been chatting him up to be something special despite his unremarkable presentation. So, what's the scoop? Consider Yosuke as a whole. Before Narukami, he was basically friendless. Before the TV world, he was meandering about. Had a job, had school, and had a bike. A mundane life. Nothing wrong with that. But the very moment there was something more, something beyond a small town life, Yosuke not only got more, he became more, and then wanted more. Typically, it is the most unlikely of people that go down the hero's journey, fulfilling quests and overcoming the antagonist. But that's for Narukami. For Yosuke, the allure of embodying a purpose is the point. The Shadows said that. He's not a hero, he's bored. And this is something that bothers Yosuke from start to end. In fact, it is during the course of Persona 4 and Golden that we see how Yosuke's character was elevated. And you could say, that's basically everyone involved in the plot, from Naoto to Teddy. And that is true, but the majority of the cast also had distinguishing ways that define where their personal journeys are. Yukiko's story is about whether or not she will inherit the responsibilities of her family's inn. Naoto's story is about becoming the role model she desires to be in an occupation largely held by people of the opposite gender. As with nearly all Persona characters, it's about becoming and embracing your true self, the idealized version of yourself, the best self. The bonds the main protagonist makes with his arcanas makes this clear. So let me ask, what is Mr. Hanamura's best self? With everything going or not going for him, who is his best self? Chie is strong, Yu is courageous, and Naoto is intelligent. And all of the investigation team share similar traits like righteousness and determination, influenceable by the player protagonist. Yosuke is smack dab in the middle. He's not as strong as Chie or Kanji, not as intelligent or as graceful as Naoto or Yukiko respectively. He's certainly as silly as Teddy or Narukami. But then again, in any awkward situation, the team becomes a social mess, in a good way. Back to Yosuke though, there's no real angle here. He's proven capable in many ways, but not exactly fixed in any direction. He obviously got involved in the murder mystery when Saki perished, and became invested in the plot when he received his persona after accepting his shadow. But that was just the start. From point A to B, he's the Robin to use Batman, a second-hand man, a support, a partner. Looking at a cast of strong protagonists with a generalized perception, Yosuke feels like a side character. He's there, his presence is acknowledged and it's important, yet he feels sort of out of place. If he wasn't so invested in the mystery of the TV world, Yosuke could have been easily relegated to the sidelines. So, how does he develop? It started with his relationship with Saki, which caused him to look into the Midnight Channel. Her demise is what reinforced a sense of self-loathing already sat deep inside of him. Losing Saki was not just losing someone he thought he knew, but losing any meaning as to why he was even in Inaba. He had meant to develop some kind of relationship, but with that gone, he has no direction for himself. She might have hated him, even by his own admission, but Yosuke, being Yosuke, simply wanted something to do, and to be meaningful to something, even someone. It's not even about romance or friendship. It's simply the lack of meaning to his very existence in Inaba. He's all over the place because of that, and he needs to get himself together. Saki's demise was his first genuine loss, and this experience has given him a reality check. It is possible to fail, to lose something. And it is this feeling of what could have been that drives Yosuke. Eventually, although there's nothing screaming excitement for Yosuke, he comes to love the town of Inaba and appreciate it, at the very least, to appreciate the genuine company he has with the team and his family. Furthermore, the idea of having meaning to life is connected to being special to someone when it comes to Yosuke. In reflection, he admits that the gift of life is not because of what you have or can do. Simply living is reason enough to find that special meaning to someone. And in this regard, that someone may as well have been Yosuke. He needed to accept himself. Not because he's not incapable of living up to expectations or because of what he might not have, but because he just needed to accept that he was a human being too, one that deserves connection and love. It's about his own self-worth, how he sees himself, and how he sees the impact he has on others, even if he might not get something out of it. Was he merely an empty vessel for complaints and self-hatred? Or was he his own person, a made man of his own volition? He felt selfish and closed in, bitter at the negatives that seemed to encompass his life. Realizing that people actually needed him for legitimate reasons helped him to open his eyes and become more selfless, if not for them, at least for himself. Yosuke is genuinely a good person, just a little lost, confused about and for himself. Heaven forbid he comes across the opportunity to become the hero of the story and really show who he truly is. But by letting go of what he can't control, what has happened in the past, and giving himself the chance to enjoy what he has, he's become more accepting of who he is. Things won't drastically change on the ordinary side of his world, but at the very least, he's found some of the various meanings he's been searching for. At the very end, if Yosuke is anything, he's a good friend. And I believe this contributes to why he persists through his sheer will to see all of the story through. His awkward charms help normalize the group, and his ability to embody a role within the team is an invaluable asset. He's everything and anything, besides maybe healer, even though he shouldn't have to be. I don't say this to decrease any value or writing of his character. I say this to say this. Dare I say that Yosuke is the spirit of the team. You might be the figurehead, and certainly everyone looks up to him, including Yosuke. But behind the public facade is the private spirit, the soul that keeps everyone and everything in check. Again, you could say that's you, especially since he's the wildcard protagonist forming these bonds with these characters. It's you that helps everyone become their best self. It's you that carries the weight of two worlds on him. But behind every Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman is a Green Arrow, a Martian Manhunter, and a Wally West. In a way, with how Yosuke was written, he's there for the others as he is for himself. Thanks to his own strengths and faults, the strengths and faults of the others can be expressed more thoroughly. And while every solid cast has a comic relief, Yosuke's contributions help the others shine, while giving himself the room to breathe within the tangled mess of the plot. Yosuke embodies the light-hearted spirit that the group needs. He's their heart. Take him out, and the team becomes a tad bit more melodramatic. Teddy might be silly and immature as well, but it's Yosuke who's the real balance. He's just as involved in the story, if not more so than the others, but he maintains the kind of character that helps keep you from sticking your head into the rabbit hole of over-the-top seriousness. This is seen during his exchange with Madarame. It reminds you that even with the right evidence and the right purpose, one can quickly become irrational and hateful, completely neglecting the whole point of the team to begin with, which is to help restore peace and joy to Inaba. Yosuke is exceptional when everyone together is exceptional. And that doesn't mean he's a good character in the same way a student is good because his group project is good, even though he did nothing. Yosuke sticks out and belongs because his presence is what gives a certain quality of life to the team that they wouldn't have without him. Even his privilege of a persona is a nod to his growing power. Personas are an ego-based cognitive power. Basically, they don't actually exist by conventional means, as they are the projection of one's psyche. It's why in 4, and even in glimpses seen in 5, the persona and the shadow are similar. That said, this could be how Yosuke projects the way he sees himself, and we see what unconscious traits of himself enable him to act and be a critical player in a difficult mess of lies and truths. I talk about power and purpose. I ended up touching upon purpose. So, what is, fact and true, power for Yosuke? What does it mean for him? Well, let's go back to the beginning. Yosuke is a nobody with not much to really live up to. He's got his responsibilities, his hobbies, his quirks. When suddenly someone he believed he had a connection with becomes a victim of a murder linked to a strange phenomenon, he gets curious and, with some buddies of his, dives into a literal other world. He discovers that one of many potential deaths are but one piece of a treacherous puzzle involving dark demons and lunatic humans. The further down the rabbit hole he goes, the more he must trust in his wit and determination over any other pre-existing beliefs that would hold him back. Everyone he knows or comes to know gets into serious danger because of the TV world, and this will escalate if no one steps up to fight back. Yosuke might not be a man's man, or even fit the typical heroic archetype, but it's within his character nature to become the one who saves, the one who steps up when no one else can't. For Yosuke, this new power is to protect his people. Notice I said people. Anyone who could mean anything to anyone he trusts, that's his people. And for someone whose introduction to the tragedies of reality was a murder, this is invaluable. But more than power to protect, it's just power itself. Now, Yosuke could be more. He found a renewed purpose and a new sense of self when he obtained his persona. So did everyone else. But they all have something they desire to be: strong, intelligent, even defiant. But for someone like Yosuke, he just wants to be something, do something, mean something. He has a position of unique power, but he also juggles what more he could be doing for his life. I can't help but think that it is in being part of a cause that he hopes he can discover what he is missing in life. And it is in this pursuit of searching for more that it becomes its true self. Yosuke is not looking for more, he's looking for meaning. All this time, he was searching for what his own life meant for him and others around him. No one else will think as lowly of himself as Yosuke would. No one else would ponder the overarching meaning of every deliberate action and thought they do and feel every day as Yosuke would. That's why he defers to Narukami and the others often, and feels embarrassed when he acts on his own volition to resolve a problem. Despite having the power to act for himself, Yosuke is never more vulnerable or as unsure of himself as when the opportunity presents itself for the real Yosuke Hanamura to shine through his insecurities and flaws. And this is best manifested when the spotlight was suddenly his.
Inaba. Yaso Inaba.
Inaba, the quiet town that once experienced turmoil in the form of otherworldly entities showing cryptic clues before murder could take place. The perfect rural mystery. Like if the Appalachian Mountains were in Japan. Oh wait, it's been a year since the cases were solved and the monsters controlling the TV world were defeated. But imagine the shock that the citizens must have felt when the Midnight Channel didn't just return, but had brought with it a massive comeback. A fighting circuit is now being broadcasted, and true to form, you and his friends are all the stars of the show, along with some added guest appearances. You and the others are pulled back into action, despite having solved the murder cases and defeated the creatures that puppeteered the TV world. Several friends of theirs are also reported missing, made more strange when two of these friends, Rize and Teddy, ended up actually appearing on the Midnight Channel and promoting this brand new fighting circuit. Their lives had gone back to normal, but strange events aligned too well for this resurgence of the Midnight Channel to be coincidental. And now it's personal, because apparently everyone has a wrestler-style persona. Yosuke happened to be Captain Ressentiment, which basically means to be a weak leader of jealousy and envy. Yikes. This time, the TV world is his old school, Yasogami High, and Teddy and Rize continuously goad Yosuke into getting into fights. He's also forced to specifically fight in a certain way because, unlike the TV world of days past, which could be explored for clues, there's only one way forward: to win. And if he doesn't, bad things happen according to Teddy and Rize, especially when a certain student council president gets involved. Now effectively by himself, Yosuke quickly tries to get into the heart of the problem. Initially, it appears as though it's a normal day for Yosuke, but things go wrong very fast, and along the way, he sees his friends, but they're not themselves. Rather, they've embodied the unsavory and off-putting aspects of their own personalities. Remember those wrestler personas? Yeah, they're real now. But according to them, Yosuke's acting like that too. Remember his title? Now, the story mode of Arena is universal. Some story parts are shared between characters, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to follow Yosuke's story mode, as it is the story mode that is followed similarly by the Arena manga. Anyways, in other story modes, the characters encounter Yosuke, who is demeaning and rude to them, picking on their strengths and calling out various flaws. This still happens even in Yosuke's story mode. Everyone is being misled because everyone thinks that their next opponent is out to get them, in a literal and emotional sense. Yosuke tries his hardest to wrap his head around these abnormalities, but he doesn't have the time to stand around and be there for his friends whom he has to defeat. This whole time as well, we see his own perspective, thoughts and feelings included. And if you want to keep it real, not much has changed with him. Still the same goofball that reacts energetically to the confusion and chaos caused by his surroundings. And it's safe to say that he's just trying his best to go off of his previous experience in the TV world, including the confusion he feels for the way people are acting and why this particular TV world is behaving this way. We see just how out of his depth he feels he is, and more than once he thinks of what the others would do, especially his partner Narukami, in these kinds of situations. Given all they've been through, much of his self-esteem comes from his proximity to his partner. But now, the tough decisions and the consequences are up to him. He's the man of the moment now, the one to analyze the problem and piece together the entire picture. This whole time, Yosuke is being told that the fighting tournament is meant for him, but the circumstances involved make him doubt the validity of such a statement. If anyone was to get a surprise party, it was Narukami, coming back to Inaba to visit. Even the misled Narukami thinks that their fight is meant entirely for Yosuke. In the manga, we see just how confused he and the others are about fighting each other, even if the illusions of their alternate personas make it seem like they're airing out their grievances. Everyone is aware of Miss President, and they're concerned. She doesn't seem to be a persona user, but she's somehow immune to all of the weird gimmicks, walking through invisible walls, while the others get stopped dead in their tracks. Teddy and Rize also seem to know exactly who she is, which confuses Yosuke because A, she didn't show up in the Midnight Channel beforehand, B, she recognizes that Yosuke and the others are Yasogami students despite them not knowing she even existed, and C, she's also against the Teddy and Rize in question, both of whom are powerful persona users. It gets particularly awkward when Yu, who was beaten by Yosuke, entrusts the safety of the girl entirely onto Yosuke's hands. He hesitates. Narukami's the confident one after all, meanwhile, Yosuke's barely keeping it together. In the manga, they figure out that the girl is most likely the cause of the entire tournament. Remember, the TV world manifests your repressed perception of reality. But let's take it up a notch. If we go back to the game, it makes sense for Yosuke to dream up a fighting tournament. Here's why. So eventually, he catches up with Miss President and confronts Teddy. And this is the actual Teddy, the romantically sentimental reformed shadow. Oh yeah, Teddy's actually a shadow, but he became his own human person and now exists with the rest of the group. It's weird. But, like the others before him, Teddy starts babbling about how the tournament is for Yosuke. It gets deep.
Looks like you're enjoying the Grand Prix, Yosuke, just like I hoped. I held this Grand Prix just for you, after all. I'm glad you like it, Yosuke.
I've been saying that from the start, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's only in this world that you can be serious about anything. Doesn't the idea excite you? Wasn't this the first thing you thought when the Midnight Channel came on? Another problem that'll help me change.
That wasn't...
There is no enemy. You know that, don't you? That case is over and done with. The days where you could be special are all gone. You lost everything, and you've gone back to your boring, mediocre self again. Since you were having a hard time accepting that, I whipped up this Grand Prix. I'm on your side, Yosuke. That's why I'm hosting this for you.
There is no enemy? That's not true.
You were so cool, Yosuke. You were stronger than Chie-chan, or Yuki-chan, or even Sensei. You're almost the champion. Don't worry, I'll let you win this one.
You're lying!
What's wrong? Both of you are acting weird.
I prepared that girl as a heroine for you. Let's face it, there's no way you'd get fired up enough to win if there wasn't a pretty girl waiting at the end.
Prepared?
Yosuke-kun?
Preview on the Midnight Channel was pretty good, huh? It's no surprise since you came up with it.
No, that's not true! up! You're being controlled! I'll help you come to your senses.
Yosuke hates the thought of some random innocent person who just happens to be attractive being used just for him to relive a power fantasy. But at the same time, he doubts himself. Getting his powers back might just be what has kept him around for so long. He's back in his element after all, playing hero, having power, being part of a meaningful cause. It all makes sense for him specifically to be the cause of the same problem he's trying to fix. There isn't actually a real enemy. He's just having fun. There's no actual stress involved. This is merely a celebration for what he wants. Right? Well, Yosuke, not having it, beats Teddy in single combat, but he's unsure of himself again. Yes, he's having opportunities to be a hero. And yes, Miss President just happens to be cute. But Yosuke's not that type of guy, right? Right? The true Yosuke we've come to know values his friends and wouldn't hurt them in any form. But the real Yosuke is also super conscious about his feelings. This is the same Yosuke that was hesitant to act for himself. The same one who hated his then pathetic life. But he had come to recognize that the true value of his life comes from what he has and who he can appreciate it with. A fighting tournament of all things couldn't change his mind, right? Right? No, the tournament isn't a threat to him. It's a threat to their relationships and their true selves. I said there. Why? Because, as aforementioned from the manga, Miss President is actually the cause. And like Yosuke, she has had no clue what is truly happening. And when she tries to figure things out, her emotions get the better of her, and even the announcers try to undermine her self-confidence. Whoever was behind the entire tournament is an expert at understanding the true desires and feelings of the unfortunate people trapped inside. I wonder who that could be. But how can Yosuke convince her of the possibility of shadow selves acting so arrogantly against her? If this tournament is truly because of him, then everything that could happen likely stems from him. Once again, his coincidental affiliation with something he hates is getting people hurt. And it pains him to see that, and he sees it as his fault. Well, when all is said and done, Yosuke and Miss President try and figure out who's behind all of this. Again though, he hesitates to help her. Yosuke explains some background knowledge, but without the same leader-like qualities of Narukami. By Yosuke's own words, he's making things worse. But surprisingly, he does manage to bring out some positivity and hope being himself. Though, again, he gets embarrassed of himself. He's not entirely convinced of his own merit, even with Miss President saying to him that he's literally helped her. But he's gotten this far, how much further is left? And sure enough, he's back. The shadow, the repressed consciousness. And remember what he said before? The same old, same old. Yosuke isn't here to be a hero. He's here because he's bored. Well, it seems that he, and therefore Yosuke, hasn't changed. The Pre is here for him, right? I mean, how else could someone so bored out of their mind ever truly find a purpose? Why would they? I mean, if they're so powerful before, why not keep those powers around, right? What's the point of life if we're not doing what we want all day, every day? He's got no one to really get attached to, and his normal everyday life sucks anyway. What, he rides a bicycle and has a job? To hell with that. There's no meaning in things like that. There's no meaning unless it's for you. This world is pointless and offers nothing. You could be doing way more. Become the hero. Go get the girl. Be your true self. Resisting the siren's call, Yosuke takes up arms and defeats his own shadow. And from here, I'm going to composite both the manga and the game together. Before the shadow is defeated, Yosuke is given the opportunity to reflect on himself. Even after bringing back peace by overcoming the culprits of the first TV world, Yosuke's life is not permanently sunshine and rainbows. That's not how life works. In a very meta way, Yosuke got his character development, but old wounds require some closure. It seems he hasn't really moved on from the more painful memories of his past, let alone the thrill and excitement he must have felt while the team was still active. Without the team, there's no real power, only the knowledge of what he was capable of doing when the stars aligned and the time was right. But that's apparently not enough for Yosuke, the ordinary man of ordinary means. He's become a better man because of his experiences, but it's his desire for more of those experiences that has brought his shadow back. It takes his friends to remind him that despite his weaknesses, they believed in him to do his best. So, where the setting could have proven to be his personal indulgent fantasy, he instead takes the opportunity now to do something more than simply owning up to himself. Especially when, in a way, this whole situation isn't about him, it's about Miss President. Or, should I say, Labrys. Yosuke accepts his weakness, and will continue to do so no matter how many times he needs to. But following a series of extremely unexpected events, he then goes after Labrys when she begins to lose herself. It turns out it was her shadow all along, taunting her with a broken past, and a setting devised by fictitious memories conjured to ensure she could live in peaceful ignorance. Here, Yosuke understands what Narukami must have felt many times, to be the one to show the truth, as well as all the shame and grief that come with it. And he wasn't about to fail Labrys now, even if he gets further out of his depth because of the arrival of Aegis, another Persona user sent to retrieve Labrys from the TV world. But as his Persona, Yosuke pushes past all the doubt and the uncertainty, locks in, and defeats the shadow. But in the aftermath, there's some things that need resolution. For Labrys, there's no going back. Everything that has happened leading up to this point is true. Yosuke can't deny that. But what she's denying is the truth, breaking down the same ignorant dreams she's been blissfully content with. For Yosuke, it's a full circle moment. For someone who's always held themselves in contempt and always relied on others to validate who he is, it's Yosuke being himself that helps Labrys realize that she can be her own person, beyond any past labels or mistakes. The future will be bright when she has the right people she can count on. In a way, they mirrored each other, helpless against greater powers, yet having burned with the desire to intervene and save, filled with self-loathing for all the things they couldn't do, held captive by their own conceptions of purpose, longing for a place where they could possibly find a meaning for themselves and where they can truly belong. And, like Labrys, it's the allure of the TV world that presents Yosuke that chance to do something with his life. A fictitious world where he can get the opportunity to embody a purpose far more exciting and meaningful than what his ordinary life could offer, even if only to stay ignorant of the painful truths of his life. And even if personas are entirely a cognitive power accessible only in the TV world, what's genuinely stopping Yosuke from going back in? Not to mention, Yosuke said himself that the TV world had offered him the chance to change. He's right back at square one, and this is why he has been so hesitant. The shadows may be the repressed feelings and truths of a person, but I also can't help but feel that they also form from a special kind of resentment. To me, even if Yosuke got what he wanted, what's to say he won't hate it? After all, even when he got these chances to live up to his supposed fantasies, he's shown that he still resents parts of himself. He won't find peace with the true core of his problems by embodying his make-believes. But through it all, Yosuke chooses to remember why he is the person he is now. And that is exactly what helps Labrys see a future beyond her own troubled history. It's in this moment that you could say that Yosuke finds closure for himself in a narrative way. That same nagging feeling of what could have been was now fulfilled. Pathetic, not good for anything Yosuke was able to save the girl. The most unlikely guy was able to get it done. Happy ending and all. Yosuke is special because He's not. His story is that of a young man, disillusioned by his normal life, and how the consequences of supernatural events affected him in particular. He might feel carried by the strong personalities of his friends, but don't they all? Some characters might need role models to fit their personality and aspirations. Some might need a crutch for their troubles. But there are those that just need the right group of friends, the ones that can help them find the meaning of their own lives. Like Yosuke. I might have repeated myself a few times in regards as to why Yosuke is so special, but with how his story was laid out, I don't think it was meant to be some K-drama narrative. Simply the story of the average man and the promise of meaning in a world that can be dull. In a way, he might actually embody you. If there is anything we can learn from Yosuke, it's that living up to our potential takes patience and the right people, to be our true selves and to share that with others, to appreciate the blessings in our lives, and to find our own self-worth and self-esteem regardless of our circumstances. Hopefully, it is along this path that we can discover what our lives truly mean to others and to ourselves.